Well, if you're going to start anywhere with Star Trek, you might as well start at number 1. Here's a look at the brand new Super 7 Star Trek Ultimates Commander William T. Riker. As first officer aboard the USS Enterprise D, William Riker is second in command, but is commonly referred to as number 1 by his captain Jean-Luc Picard. Not one to sit the sidelines, Riker is a confident, brash Starfleet officer known for taking unconventional approaches to problems and unafraid to challenge the chain of command. His competitive nature extends to his off hours, where he frequently convenes his crewmates in poker games or ambo-jitsu matches. Picard must be on a away mission right now if Riker's helming the bridge. Let's hope he doesn't crash the saucer section this time. Before, of course, we get a closer look at the brand new Star Trek Ultimates Riker. Let's go ahead and grab, of course, the tape measure. I'm already doing it, and let's find out first how tall the figure stands. Now, I didn't actually find the entire first wave at Entertainment Earth. If you guys are interested, you can click the link down below in the video description. Not only will take you to the link of Riker, but also as well save you 10%. That's anything that's currently on site, in stock, over on Entertainment Earth right now. Commander Riker, though, stands exactly 7 inches in height, or the figure's going to be about 18 centimeters tall. Now, I can tell you right away, one thing I'm liking about this line so far is the paint applications. That looks a lot like Riker. It's certainly a far cry, and I'm going to be bringing him in as an example from the G.I. Joe Series 2 or Wave 2 Flint, a figure I was really hoping to have a really good-looking release, and unfortunately under-delivered a bit on the paint. You can really see, though, where Super 7 dropped the ball when it came to the second wave of G.I. Joe figures, and where they've now reclaimed the ball with the newest wave of Star Trek Ultimates. Beaming down now, the accessories that come included with the commander. First, the figure comes included with the tiny little doll of Captain Jean-Luc Picard from Captain Picard Day. I don't know, I think the resemblance is rather striking. Wouldn't you agree, number 1? What a nice little accessory. I'm never really going to be displaying this with Commander Riker, but the fact that Super 7 would even take the time to actually include the little tiny captain is a nice little touch on their part. Now, of course, there's no posability on the tiny little doll of Picard, but the fact that, they would include that is a really nice touch. The figure also comes included with a lot of references to poker, and I'm just looking at also data I also picked up at the same time as Riker, and he also comes included with some poker-inspired accessories. We also picked up, or I picked up at least, Locutus, and obviously being the fact that he's a Borg, and I don't suspect that he's playing card games in the cube, he's not going to come included with any poker accessories. But Riker actually comes included not only with a stack of cards, getting a closer look at that, molded nicely even to the point where they actually sculpted the sections of where the card be separated. Obviously you can't remove the cards, it's just basically a big hunk of plastic, but nicely printed both on the top and on the bottom as well. You can see it's the Ace of Diamonds. I don't know why they referenced Ace of Diamonds. I don't know if it has anything to really do with an episode of Star Trek, or it's just a hidden joke or an inside joke at Super 7. Still, you got an Ace of Diamonds there on the bottom of the revealed card. He also comes included with a fanned out bunch of cards. Now, the fan cards do come included with the Jack, the Queen, the King, the Ace, and the 10, all seeming to be in spades. I will say, though, getting this out of the packaging, this was already attached to his hand, but then removing it from the tray, it actually broke the cards off. It looked to be the case that they're probably glued in between the thumb and the pointer. And it was just the case that the cards fell off. I mean, it's not to the point where they're necessarily, well, it's broken in the sense that it was really supposed to be permanently attached onto the hand, but I mean, obviously I can easily just slide this back onto his hand and have it displayed that way. And of course you can have the figure displayed holding the cards so close to his face. He's really good at poker facing as well, the rest of the crew. But again, again, poker references. In a way, I kind of feel like they could probably have used some of the accessory plastic to dedicate to other episode-specific accessories. But to be fair as well, I mean, I think he comes with everything he needs to come. He doesn't come included, for example, with a tricorder. I think Data comes included with a tricorder. He comes included, though, with a type, I believe it's a Type 2 hand phaser. Molded nicely here in silver plastic. It's got the buttons and the dials where you'd expect the buttons and the dials to be. Really, again, nice little representation of the Type 2. I think it's a Type 2 phaser. He also comes included with a hand specifically for holding the phaser. It's this hand right here. See how it's kind of got a little bit of an opened angle. This just, you take the phaser and slide it in between his hand, and the thumb sits perfectly where the actual button is to fire the phaser off. And I would imagine as we are getting more Star Trek figures from Super 7, we're probably going to be getting more Starfleet issued weapons as well. The hands can easily be swapped out. It's just a case, let's find the hand that goes appropriately with that hand. We're just going to pop off the relaxed hands. He comes with a pair of those on both sides. I'm just going to remove one of them at least. We're going to pop the new hand in place with the phaser. And now he's got himself the phaser. The hand is also angled in such a way, too, that it looks like it's better. Like, it looks like it should be something where he's firing this off. It's not a case where, like, the phaser is way up here and you have to kind of just pretend he has to lean down in order to fire. The arm actually bends and the hand is posed in such a way that it looks like realistically he could actually fire at something that's in front of him. Pew, pew, pew. While he's pew-pew-pewing. The figure also comes included. Let's just get him a stand here. Comes also included with his trombone. Unfortunately, the slide does not work on the trombone. I've tried to pull it, and I know right away by pulling it, nothing is really supposed to be meant to be moving on this. It's molded, though, nicely in a gold plastic. I was trying to kind of look at all the accessory hands that he came included with, and the hand that I thought is probably best for holding the trombone, is probably this hand right here. Depending on which side you'd like to have this on Riker's, well, again, what side of his face he'd like to be blowing inside the horn. You can have, for example, like this hand. I'm just going to take this. Everything is so slippery. This plastic trombone is extremely slippery, but you can kind of take the hand, I've noticed, and just clip it around, kind of like right around here. I had an easier time of doing this earlier. There we go. Kind of clip it around that way, but it doesn't look like he has necessarily a dedicated hand for holding the trombone. It's just, again, I may have called it a trumpet earlier. It looks like again, I'm guessing this is supposed to, maybe I was supposed to have it fitting this way. And that's supposed to fit. See, I don't know if you can kind of see what I'm done here. It's basically just wedging these fingers around the middle section of the trombone, and he can hold the trombone that way. I can't think of any other hands. I mean, he has these gripping hands here also as well. I suppose you could clip this around here, but this sits really loose. Unless you were to, say, soften the plastic around the hand and kind of bring them a little bit closer together, then you could probably fit this around here. But I think, unless you really wanted to have it like that way, for example, yeah, you know what? That might hold also the trombone a little bit better as well. The figure also has command gestured hands, or at least one of them, pointing to the crew to abandon ship. Are we still going back to that joke? Poor Riker can't just cut a break whenever he's behind the captain's chair, or when he's on the captain's chair. And he also comes included with this gripping hand also as well. So I think he does come with all the necessary accessories. Just before, in fact, actually we move all the accessories away, he also comes included with the plunger. I don't know if that's the correct term. I'm going to have to look it up. The little plunging part that actually goes in front. So you can go, and that just sits basically inside the trombone. And of course, if you want to again change out the hands, just a case of popping the hand off. We'll put the trombone in here. I'd have to go back and look at the episode again and see if this is the exact side in which Riker actually holds the trombone. The thing about it, though, unfortunately, though, while even if this isn't the right side, the figure unfortunately doesn't have bending. I want to make sure I got this face in the right way. You want to make sure, get it on there. I don't know if in the episode if it's supposed to be on this side. I feel as if it's supposed to be on this side. But either way, he only has, unfortunately, a single bend in the elbow. So he really can't have it too close to his mouth, as much as I really would have wanted. Those are all the accessories. Let's move those all to the side. And getting a closer look at the head sculpt, there is technically one other, I suppose, accessory, and that would be an alternate head sculpt. But we're going to look at this one as the default first. Not only is it bearing a strong likeness to Jonathan Frakes, who I thought was rocking as Riker a lot better when he was growing out the beard. I never really liked clean-shaven Riker myself, and was always really disappointed that in Insurrection, he decided to shave it off. I always thought Riker looked always really better when he was actually having a beard. The paint on this face is fantastic. And again, I hate to draw the attention back to the G.I. Joe Flints, but showing where the paint got left off when it came to actually producing the figure, and where they picked again up the spare when it came to Riker, it's a much better paint job. I'm sure, hopefully, you'll agree with that. The only thing about that, though, is I noticed with the head sculpt, he has a really dark tan around the front of his face. He doesn't have it as much, though, on his ears, and you notice when it comes to his neck, the neck is a little bit more paler. I feel like they maybe have added a little bit too much faux tan on the front of Riker's face, that it doesn't quite jive with the coloring that he has for the side of his neck. I wish that it was actually a little bit closer to this color, but I do still wish that it was fully painted, and I'm glad to see they actually did do that with Riker. Now there's this one just as the defaulted head, and then there's also this one if you want smiling Riker. An ideally suited head if you want to have the figure displayed with the trombone. We're just going to pop the head off the ball joint, pop the new head then in place. I didn't have any problems, by the way, of actually changing out the heads. I thought I may have had to heat them. Not at all. Not at all. And that's what the smiling head sculpt looks like. Just bring back in the original Riker so you can see the difference between the two. Some may prefer to have the more stoic Riker on their shelf. The smiling Riker, I have to say, has some mileage there as well. Really like the smile on his face. The eyes, again, for how small they are, nicely painted. The beard is well painted as well. I don't really see any bleeding problems at all where paint has found its way onto other places. A really nice looking Riker. Now, this is the later season's suits. So you notice with the suit, for example, instead of actually having the little lines that go across the shoulders and missing the collar, this one has the collar with the pips. And, of course, he's got the Starfleet uniform insignia badge there, the communicator. That's there also as well. A really nice, nicely sculpted and nicely painted figure. Going, though, back to the hand phaser, though, which is still, of course, attached to Riker's hand, there's no place to store this on the figure's body. I do, in a way, wish that they could have given him a little tiny pouch or something, of course, that could attach the phaser. But then I know with the phaser never being on it, if you decide, say, for example, have it in his hand, then there'd just be this ugly spot on the side of his waist. So I guess they chose instead just wisely not to have that. And I guess it's not bad at all. The figure has some decent detailing down below. I feel like there should be a little bit higher of a cut down below here for the legs. I know in the original series suits, I think they also had the red lining here as well that would have matched then the color of the top of the tunic. But down below here, I feel like this would be a little higher cut than what it is right now. A nice sculpted figure. The thing I will say about the figure is looking at him, he seems like he's really tall in the torso, at least this part right here, and maybe not as equally lengthwise, proportionally. He's not as long in the legs. Other than that, though, really happy with how Riker turned out. I hope I will have still the same feelings when we're looking at the other two figures from this wave. That would be, of course, Data and Locutus of Borg. Surprisingly enough, though, we did start this wave with Riker. We're not getting a Picard. We are getting a Borgified Picard, but kind of strange that they decided not to go with a Picard for the first release instead of going right away to number 1 instead. For the figure's articulation, Riker's head is going to be on a ball joint, so it rotates all the way around. Head looks down only by that far. I know it doesn't even look like I really moved it. It looks down that far, and it looks up. You can also move it as well back and forth, but not by a lot, though. The upper torso is on a ball joint. Although you can't really move it back and forth too much, you can easily move it up and down, though. Shoulders do rotate all the way around. That's on both sides. The arms do come out at not quite 90 degrees, just a little less than that. The figure does have a bicep swivel, only still, again, possessing a single hinge in the elbow, so it might be a little harder for him to play the trombone. And the hands do rotate also all the way around. Legs do split on Riker. You can get a full splits going for him. You can bring the legs forward, bring the legs back. This is, by the way, a little softer of a plastic. Not to the degree of, for example, of some of the DC Multiverse figures that we've looked at, but is, though, notably a little bit softer than the top of his torso. The legs do have a slight swivel at the top of the thigh. There's a single hinge only on Riker's knee, allows the lower leg to rotate. The feet move up and down, and you can also rock them back and forth as well. Riker, in case you're also curious, does have pegals on the undersides of his feet. I think I've yet to come across any of the Super 7 Ultimate figures that have actually had a display stand dedicated for them. A nice looking Riker, though. Maybe some of the accessories aren't necessarily needed. I think when it comes to displaying the figure, like, for example, will you ever display him with Captain Picard Day, little doll Picard? Probably not. Maybe you probably be a little bit more leaning to the idea of displaying him with the trombone. I'm glad to see they included the trombone. And, of course, if you want just standard fare issued weapons, it also comes included, of course, with the Type 2 phaser as well. A nice release. I'm glad I did actually start with Riker. I was almost even tempted to start with Locutus, but I'm glad I started with Riker first. I think he set the bar pretty high, and all things considered, because he's second in command. While I may have had a bit of a struggle getting that trombone in his hand, at least here in final looks you can see how the figure is displayed with it. Granted, not possessing double hinges in his elbows make things very difficult to get his mouth actually around the nozzle, but at least you can get it displayed in such a way that Riker's performing for the rest of the crew in 10 forward. Really like the look of Riker. And again, I go back to a point I mentioned earlier in this review. I'm glad that I did start things off with Riker, because I think, again, starting things really high with a Starfleet member, first of all, he's also got human skin. And I only use that as a comparison or use that as a mention point because both with Locutus and with Data, both the figures are going to have unnatural skin tones. So I thought it was a good way to kind of start things off and kind of gauge exactly where we're going to be looking at when it comes to Star Trek figures. If they can land, again, human skin, then we shouldn't have any problems when it comes to the rest of the figures. Now, I did pick up Riker, I did pick up Data, and I did pick up Picard as Locutus of Borg. We're going to be, of course, looking at Data and Locutus in upcoming reviews. But what do you guys think of Riker? Let me know down below in the comments section. Pretty good looking release from the folks over at Super 7. I know, again, I mentioned that they did drop the ball when it came to Flint, and I keep bringing back Flint as the example because, again, like second wave, after having been so successful with the first wave of G.I. Joes, I was extremely, again, disappointed. Flint was my all-time favorite figure, all-time favorite character, And I'm glad to see that while unfortunately I was disappointed with my all-time favorite G.I. Joe, my all-time favorite, or one of my all-time favorite crew members of the Starfleet, or Starship Enterprise, Commander William T. Riker, was in good hands by giving it to Super 7. Again, if you guys are interested and would like to get this one for yourself, it is available as of right now at Entertainment Earth. Clicking the link down below not only will allow you to pick up the first wave of Star Trek Ultimate figures, but that same link will also save you 10% on anything that's currently in stock. If you guys certainly would like to stick around and see the remaining reviews of the Star Trek Ultimate figures, courtesy of the folks over at Super 7, and you haven't already done so, might I encourage you to head to the direction of not that neighboring world that seems to have a distress call. You always know that that's going to be trouble. But rather instead, hit that subscribe button down below and turn on the bell notification. As always, guys, thanks for watching. See you guys next time.